state easy to read about. React does that thing. Firebase makes persisting your data easy to implement. Rebase combines the two. Why? I'm sure it's a very good story, but we're pressed for time. So examples. See the API. We got sync state, two-way data binding. What's two-way data binding? Well, one does, the other does. Yeah. It's like AngularJS, the first version of Angular, not Angular 2. AngularJS had two-way data binding everywhere. You changed it here, it changed over there. Change it here, changes back over there. Works both ways. The Firebase database, when you use Rebase, same deal. You change your state, it changes Firebase. You change Firebase, it changes your state. Sweet. All right, what do we have here? Example using only the Firebase database component. That's what we need to do, I think. So we need to get Rebase. So this is using require.js, which is kind of an old module syntax. It does the same thing as import, but we need to use import. So require that, require Firebase app, require Firebase database, initialize app. We just did that. And then we call firebase.database, passing in this config. And then we do this Rebase thing. So this looks like this works without Rebase even. So in my base.js here, I import Firebase from Firebase app. Let's also import database from Firebase database, right? Isn't that what it was? Yeah. So we've got app here, which is what gets returned from Firebase initialize app. So then we'll do const db equals database app. Const db equals database, which we imported. Oops. Passing in app here. So now we've got our real-time database configured. And then Rebase we need to import. And then call Rebase create class, passing in this database. So let's import capital R Rebase from re-base. We'll call rebase.create class, passing in this DB thing. And this is our Firebase class. This is how we're going to do our Rebase class. So this is how we're going to do all our Rebase stuff. So this is the file that we want to export from base.js. So let's export default rebase.create class. Now, before I go any further, I think I don't want to commit this file to my repo, because if anyone else is using it, they're not going to want to use my Firebase configuration. They're going to use their own. So here's what I'm going to do instead. In gitignore, so find your gitignore file, gitignore. Let's add base.js in there. Let's look here. Okay, now base.js is not listed. Good. That's what we wanted. And then what I am going to do is copy it. I'm going to make a new file in my source tree called base.example.js. I'm just going to copy this in here and just like change these strings to like your API key, your auth domain, your DB URL, your project ID, your storage bucket, your messaging sender ID. So that way, someone who looks at the code on GitHub, clones it, they'll still have an example to follow. They'll know what to do here. But my base.js wouldn't work for them anyway. So there's no point in committing that. It's not a huge security issue because, I mean, this thing is actually going to get sent down to the browser every time anyway. We'll configure our Firebase to only be authorized to talk to our machines and our servers, so they wouldn't be able to access it anyway. But still, we don't need to commit our API key. Yeah.
Do we need to do Firebase that database app on
Since on line here, so since we imported database from Firebase/database, no. If we had just imported Firebase from Firebase, we could have said Firebase.database here. But since we imported database separately, we didn't import all of Firebase on this line. We just imported Firebase/app. So we're only importing the parts we actually need, app and database. So we just use this database that we imported instead of Firebase.database.
If we say import and no database and no from, just straight up import Firebase database. So how do you just straight away refer to it?
No, I mean, you didn't import it as anything, so you don't have those local variables, I don't think. Did you see it work?
Yeah, that's right.
So since we are using ES6 modules, yeah, we need to be able to refer to it locally. So we want to import it as something. So now what? Yeah.
We in get ignore we put base.example. Right?
No, we put base.js. So the one that actually has your API key in it, you want to ignore that. So if I look at my Git tab here, base.example.js is going to be committed because that's the whole idea. So they know. I could put a comment at the top here. Copy this file to base.js and add your app details. We'll add something about that to the README at some point too. All right, now what? Now what, Tucker? What do you say? Mm-hmm. So in main? So main is the one that has the state that we're looking to sync, right? So we're going to have to use rebase in here. So all our rebase stuff is in this base.js, so we probably need to import it here. Or we can't use it. So that seems like a good idea. So let's import base from base. Like this. So yeah, component did mount or component will mount, where before, this is where we needed to start doing something with our nodes, right? Whether we're loading it from local storage or loading it from Rebase or whatever. We want to do it basically as soon as this component exists. Maybe even before it renders with component will mount, or component did mount immediately after it renders. Either way. Let's see. We had sync state, two-way data binding. Let's click on that. Let's see what the API for that is. Sync state, endpoint, and options. Allows you to set up two-way data binding between your component state and your Firebase. It's exactly what we want to do. Whenever your Firebase changes, your component state will change, and vice versa. So first, the endpoint, the relative Firebase endpoint to which you'd like to bind your component state. The relative Firebase endpoint. So here's our real-time database. This is a very JSON-like structure. It's a tree structure. This is not like a relational database. It's more like a document database, more like Mongo. If you've ever used Mongo, has anybody used Mongo? Okay. The one person who made it work. That makes sense. So we're going to have a bunch of keys and values and stuff in here. So if I add something here called notes, I don't know. What's this? Let's see. How do you even use this interface anymore? What's the plus do? Plus is, oh, there we go. Finally. Okay. So maybe I say notes, and I give it a value, but the value I want is another object. So I'm going to hit the plus here. Let's see. How do you even do this anymore? How do I do an array in here? Let's demonstrate this another way. Let's just say notes. Let's just say my endpoint is notes, and let's see what it does. How's that sound? So the endpoint, the relative Firebase endpoint to which you'd like to bind your component state, and then options. Context, which is required, the context of your component. And then state, the state property you want to sync. Okay, cool. The rest of these are optional. This seems like it tells it everything we want to know. As array would return the Firebase data at the specified endpoint as an array instead of an object, which maybe is what we want to do since we're basing this on an object. Let's see here. So we've imported base. Component will mount. We're not doing local storage anymore. So base.sync state seems to be the thing we want. Endpoint, it's a string. I don't know. Let's just put notes. The second argument is options. It's an object. So everything else is going to go inside an object. So on options, we have a context option that is required, the context of your component. So what that means is, what's your component? It's this right here. That's all it means. Just this. And then a string that is the state property you want to sync. Which property do we want to sync? Which thing out of state? Notes, right? So that would be the string notes. State notes. As array, maybe we want that. I don't know. We'll see. Let's try it like this and just see what happens. And it exploded immediately. Firebase database, not a function. We added some yarn packages here, so let's restart our server. Sometimes that stuff doesn't get picked up. Okay, it's still a problem. Firebase database default, not an option. Always fun when stuff changes from one year to the next. We could try importing all of Firebase for a moment, see if Firebase.database works. Or heck, we could just try Firebase database. We could keep this the same up here. See if Firebase.database fixes it. Okay. Firebase.database did fix it, so it does need to be Firebase database. It didn't used to have to be that, so say Firebase database. Change it into an example too, so other people's code isn't broken. Okay. Firebase.database, that works. So there's your question. So yes, we should. So this one we should just be able to import.
So
So
how are we referring to it? Or does it automatically?
So since Firebase is already here, I think it just does right. Seems goofy. If we take it out though, if I'm just importing Firebase app, yeah, that doesn't work. I don't know the internals. I don't know why that works exactly, But since they're both part of the same package, it does work. I'm not sure exactly why this works. I don't have a great answer. But Firebase.database won't be there if you don't import Firebase database. But yeah, you don't have to import it as anything. It just picks it up, and I'm not sure I could tell you exactly why that works. We have a problem. Notes.map isn't a function, right? Because it's not an array. Did you do it as array? Is that what you did? So main context state as array, straight out of the documentation, true. Okay. Seems fine. Let's start adding some notes. Real-time database, among other things. Now let's go look at Firebase. Check it out. In Firebase, I now see this. Expand that. I see 0, and there's my item. It's there. What if we change it? Body. A thing Dave's making us use. Did I say it? How do you save your changes? Oh, it changed it back. Okay. So I'm getting it the one way. Let's see here. A thing. There we go. Hit enter. And it says the thing over here. Change it in real time. Now this is out of sync, which is interesting. Mm-hmm.
I'm getting a problem, dot source or dot src slash main dot js. Can't resolve that slash base.
Did you have a base.js or just base.example.js? And are you talking about on your local machine?
Yeah.
Make sure you have a base.js.
I do.
In that folder? Did you put it in the right folder?
In src?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll look at it in a minute. Okay, just a sec. Well, this is at least kind of doing that thing. I'm going to get rid of all my local storage stuff right now because we're just going to do Firebase now. So window.local storage here I'm going to get rid of. Window.local storage here I'm going to get rid of. All right, cool. So now I'm just Firebasing it all the time. Add another note. Does it do the thing? Seems to do the thing. Cool. And they're all there. What if I refresh the page? Yep, they all come back. What about deleting? Does deleting just work? Refresh. It did. Got that for free. So that's cool. Yeah.
Why don't we just store the entire state and then so that the current node is always updated as well? Isn't that the right thing to do?
So sync that too.
Yeah. And that's how like both of them will be consistent.
So we saw if this thing happens to be loaded into current note and we change it on the back end. Oops. A neat thing. That changed it here, but it didn't change it here because this is dealing with a copy. So this is kind of an interesting problem. If you click on it again, yeah. But it doesn't change it immediately, which seems like not what should happen. If you sync to current note, that
Now we could add a function where when the page refreshes, right, the node form is empty.
when we refresh, it's empty again. We could solve this any number of ways. Let's hold off on that. But that's one possibility, is we could sync current node as well. But it seems like that is totally just an internal state thing. That doesn't feel like something that belongs in the database to me. Seems like there's got to be some better way to do that. I'm going to go ahead and commit this much. Sync notes with Firebase. We definitely accomplished something here.